In 1975, a Senate subcommittee uncovered something that would shake American journalism to its core. Declassified documents revealed that the CIA had been secretly controlling what you read in your morning newspaper, what you watched on the evening news, and which stories never saw the light of day. They called it Operation Mockingbird, and for decades, America's most trusted journalists were actually CIA assets, spreading propaganda disguised as news. The question isn't whether this happened. The declassified documents prove it did. The question is, did it ever really stop? I'm Jeremy Ryan Slate, and today we're diving into one of the most disturbing government operations ever exposed. Because once you understand Operation Mockingbird, you'll never look at the news the same way again. Welcome back to the Jeremy Ryan Slate Show. I am your host, Jeremy Ryan Slate, the CEO and co-founder of Command Your Brand. We help our clients to make the biggest impact on the right podcasts. You can grab our free brand authority analysis over at commandyourbrand.com/analysis. Also, a reminder to like this video, leave us a comment, and smash the subscribe button if you want to learn more of history's mysteries and truly understand the world you live in today. To understand Operation Mockingbird, we need to go back to 1947, right after World War II ended. The CIA had just been created, and America was entering the Cold War. The Soviet Union was spreading communist propaganda across the globe, and the CIA believed that they needed to fight back. But not with weapons. They would fight back with information, or more accurately, disinformation. Enter Frank Wisner, a former Wall Street lawyer who became the CIA's Deputy Director of Plans. In 1948, Wisner created the Office of Policy Coordination, the OPC. On paper, it was supposed to coordinate policy. In reality, well, it was the CIA's propaganda machine. And working alongside Wisner was Allen Dulles. Yes, the same Allen Dulles who would later become CIA director and sit on the Warren Commission investigating JFK's assassination. Remember that name. It's going to come up again. By 1953, the OPC's budget had exploded to $82 million. That's over $900 million in today's money. And a huge chunk of money was going to Operation Mockingbird. The mission was simple, but a bit sinister. Recruit American journalists to become CIA assets. Not spies in the traditional sense, these journalists would continue their normal work. But when the CIA needed a story planted, a narrative pushed, or information buried, these journalists would easily comply. And they recruited hundreds of them. Now, here's where it gets disturbing. We're not talking about small-town papers or fringe publications. The CIA had assets at the highest level of American media. According to the Church Committee, the Senate investigation that exposed this in 1975, the CIA had relationships with reporters at the New York Times, CBS, Time Magazine, Newsweek, the Associated Press, United Press International, Reuters, and dozens more. Take Philip Graham, the publisher of the Washington Post. Declassified documents show he was working directly with the CIA, helping to recruit other journalists into the program. The Washington Post, the same paper that would later expose Watergate, was compromised from the top. Or CBS. The CIA had so many assets at CBS that one agency official bragged they could get a story on the air whenever they wanted. William Pauly, the founder and chairman of CBS, personally collaborated with the CIA for decades. But here's what really shows you the scale. According to CIA whistleblower Carl Bernstein, yes, the same Carl Bernstein from the Watergate, the CIA had working relationships with over 400 American journalists by the 1960s. And it wasn't just domestic. The CIA owned or subsidized over 50 newspapers, magazines, and publishing houses around the world. They were literally creating media outlets from scratch to spread their narratives. Some journalists knew exactly what they were doing and were paid directly. Others were manipulated. They were fed stories by CIA contacts without realizing they were being used as propaganda tools. And some were just ideologically aligned, believing they were serving their country by serving the CIA. They planted stories about communist threats that didn't actually exist. They buried stories about CIA operations gone wrong. They shaped public opinion on everything from foreign elections to domestic policy. So think about that for a second. For decades, Americans thought they were getting objective news. They weren't. They were getting carefully crafted CIA propaganda, delivered by journalists they trusted. So, did this finally come to light? Well, 2 words: Watergate. After Nixon resigned in 1974, Congress was in a rare mood to actually investigate intelligence agencies. Senator Frank Church led a committee to examine the CIA abuses, and what they found was explosive. In 1975 and 1976, the Church Committee released reports documenting Operation Mockingbird in detail. The public was outraged. The CIA was supposed to operate overseas, not manipulate American citizens through their own media. In 1976, newly appointed CIA Director George H.W. Bush, yes, that same evil man that became president, announced the CIA would stop using journalists as assets. He called it a new era of transparency and accountability. But here's the problem. The reform was full of loopholes. The CIA would stop using journalists who worked for major American news organizations. But freelancers, foreign correspondents, strangers, academic researchers who also wrote for publications, all were still fair game. Just 5 years later, when William Casey became CIA director under Reagan, even those weak restrictions were quietly loosened. Casey was a true believer in propaganda. He'd run psychological operations during World War II and thought the CIA had gotten a bit too soft. Throughout the 1980s, during the height of Reagan's Cold War escalation, the CIA was back in media manipulation. They just got better at hiding it. And that's what brings us to today. Because here's the uncomfortable question nobody wants to ask. If Operation Mockingbird worked so well for decades, and the CIA only got caught because of a unique political movement after Watergate, why would they ever stop? Now, I can't prove the CIA is still running an operation exactly like Mockingbird today, but the declassified documents only go so far, and the current operations are obviously classified. But let me show you some things that make you think twice. In 2012, Congress passed the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. Sounds boring, but here's what it actually did. It legalized domestic dissemination of government propaganda. Before 2012, it was illegal for the State Department and the Pentagon to propagandize Americans, which was created for foreign audiences. But after 2012, it was perfectly legal. Then there's the digital age. Operation Mockingbird required recruiting hundreds of journalists, one by one. Today, the CIA could influence millions through social media algorithms, bot networks, and digital astroturfing. And we'd never be the wiser. Look at how often former CIA officials and intelligence community sources appear on cable news. Are they former? Or are they still assets now with the perfect cover? Remember the Hunter Biden laptop story in 2020? 51 former intelligence officials signed a letter calling it Russian disinformation. Major media outlets used that letter to justify burying the story. Later, the laptop was confirmed as authentic. Were those officials really former, or was that Mockingbird in action? Or look at RussiaGate. For 3 years, anonymous intelligence sources fed stories to major media outlets about Trump-Russia collusion. The Mueller report found no conspiracy, but those stories dominated the news cycle for years, shaped public opinion, and influenced elections. Go back further. Remember Iraq's weapons of mass destruction? Every major media outlet reported as fact, citing intelligence sources. But there were no WMDs. The intelligence was wrong or deliberately false, but the media sold the war to the American public. Here's what we know for certain. Operation Mockingbird proved that the CIA can successfully manipulate American media for decades without getting caught. It proved that journalists at the highest levels will cooperate with intelligence agencies. It proved that the public will believe the news is objective even when it's carefully crafted propaganda. And most importantly, it proved that when the CIA finally gets exposed, they'll promise reform, change nothing, and go right back to doing what works. So is Operation Mockingbird still happening? Well, I don't know. But I know the CIA has the capability, the legal authority, the budget, and a proven track record of doing exactly this. The question isn't whether they could do it again. The question is, why wouldn't they? So what do you do with this information? How could you consume news when you know the CIA has historically manipulated it? First, approach everything with healthy skepticism. When a story relies heavily on anonymous intelligence sources or former CIA officials, ask yourself this question. Who benefits from the narrative? What story isn't being told? Second, diversify your sources. Don't just rely on the mainstream media. Independent journalists, international perspectives, primary documents, get information from multiple angles. Third is to wait for declassification. Seriously. The most important stories about what the CIA was doing in the 1950s came out in the 1970s. What they're doing now? Well, we probably won't know for another 30 to 50 years, but we can learn from the patterns. The CIA counted on Americans blindly trusting authority and never questioning their news sources. Don't give them that power. Question everything. Verify independently, and remember that the most important stories are often the ones that powerful institutions don't want you to know. Operation Mockingbird wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was a documented conspiracy, proven by classified documents and congressional investigations. The CIA successfully manipulated American media for decades and only got caught because of a unique political movement. The infrastructure they built, the relationships they formed, the techniques they perfected, none of them went away. It just evolved. So the next time you watch an evening news or read a major newspaper, remember, this has happened before. The CIA has done this before, and they got away with it for 30 years before anyone figured it out. If this video opened your eyes, hit the like button and subscribe because we're diving into more declassified operations that prove the conspiracies were real. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think Operation Mockingbird ever really ended? Or did it just go underground? And if you want to go deeper, check out my video on MK Ultra coming out in a few weeks, another declassified CIA operation. That sounds too crazy to be true, but the documents prove it happened. Or watch my breakdown of Operation Northwoods, also coming soon, where the Pentagon literally planned to attack American citizens as a false flag. The truth is in the documents. You just have to be willing to look. I'm Jeremy Ryan Slate. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and I'll see you on the next investigation on The Jeremy Ryan Slate Show.